before we do this, by the way, this little profile, there is no right or wrong. You just need to know how you think and how you can change your thinking. There's no right or wrong, good or bad, but there are situational consequences. Okay? So, have you all got pens and paper in front of you? Have you all got, no? Some of you have. Those of you that have, what I'd like you to do at the moment, I'd like you to sign your name with the hand you normally use to sign your signature. So sign your name. Just sign your name. Those of you that have pens and paper. Okay, can you now sign it with the other hand? Okay? You see that when you were signing it with the other hand, was it more difficult? Yeah. What if I said to you that you had to use that hand for the rest of the week? Would that cause you a little bit of stress? I bet you it would, and things would be a lot slower. You see the way you have a preference for either writing with your right hand or writing with your left hand? It is exactly the same with thinking. You have a preference for thinking one way or a preference for thinking the other. When you are forced to think in a way that is not your preference, it causes you stress. When you are talking to someone who doesn't think in the same preferences as you, you're like, I don't understand what you're saying. Okay? There are only 4 preferences, and I'm going to show you what they are. Okay? But here's the thing about preferences. Whilst we are not measuring your ability here, preferences are linked to your ability. For example, if you have a preference for doing something, that increases your motivation. If your motivation is strong, you're going to get good at it. If your motivation is weak, you're never going to get good at it. Okay, so whilst we're not measuring ability, we are definitely, it's definitely linked to your ability to learn a new skill. Okay, have we got the cards? So what we're going to do here, how many have we got in this room? We're going to play cards. Okay, so, oh here, I brought the rest of them. Yeah, I'm about 3 different people. Oh yeah, the old. Can you shuffle cards? Nah, you haven't played cards. No, you haven't.
Not the way
you want to see my husband doing that? I'll take this side. Thank you. Okay, what I'd like you to do, alright, I'd like you to take a look at those 2 cards and see whether or not, now you've probably got a really bad hand because somebody just gave you 2 cards. Okay, what I want you to do is take a look at those 2 cards and see whether or not those words describe you. Okay, describe you as you are. If not, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you, there's a whole room full of people here with a whole lot of cards, right? Somebody's shaking their head, they absolutely hate their cards, right? You are going to get a chance in the next 5 minutes to change those cards. But you're going to have to influence other people. You're going to have to get rid of your cards and see if they've got a card that better describes you. Okay, that you can actually negotiate swaps. Okay, so you've got 5 minutes, you're going to have to move in the room to negotiate swaps. Okay, just move.
Anything you want to say? Have you wanted to say?
If you're still still left with 2 cards that do not describe you, this isn't really going to work very well. You've got to have 2 cards that describe you as you are. But what I'm going to do is take you through the theory of this so you can see yourself where you might be. Okay? So, you will see, well, there are 4 different preferences here. Okay? Let's just take you through the theory of this because that was just a very, very quick little taster of it. There are 4 preferences. Each of these colours, now I know you only ended up with 2 cards, each of these colours represents a thinking preference. Yellow is upper right brainer, okay? And red is lower right brainer. So the yellow and the red represent the right side of the brain. The blue and the green represent the left side of the brain. Okay? The colours of the cards are important here. Okay? I'm going to tell you what they mean in a moment. Yellows and blues, when they're making decisions, they use their head. They're quite logical people. And reds and greens, they use their heart. Okay? Now we have a group of nurses sitting here, and I would have expected the nurses to have picked the green and the red cards. Okay, because that's the type of profile that fits for nurses. Doctors tend to be blue and green, some with a bit of yellow. But in India, doctors tend to be a lot of red, because there was a lot of red came out yesterday. These are 4 thinking preferences. That's all there are. Now, here's another wee thing. Most people think in 2 colours. Okay? 75% of the world population are what we call double dominant. So that's why I only give you 2 cards. 75% of the world population are double dominant. 20% can think in 3 colours, and only 5% can think in 4 of the world population. So these are different ways of thinking. Now, if you are a yellow, if you've chosen a yellow card, you were able to negotiate a swap for a yellow card, you tend to be a person who's very good with your imagination. You tend to be very creative. You will break every rule in the book. You don't like rules. Okay? You love surprises. And you're quite curious and you like to play. So those who score high in yellow or see themselves as yellow, that is the behaviours that you will show. If you score high in blue, it's all about the money. It's all about budgets. It's all about performance. You don't really want to know much about the people. It's more about getting the job done. It's pure task orientated. Okay? And you're also quite disciplined. And you like formality. Okay? If you are a green, greens are detail people. They do not like change. They like things to be safe. They need to know. They are the exact opposite of people who love change. Okay, they're very reliable, they're very organised, they're usually very neat and very tidy. When you see a green person in front of you, everything will be matching. Very tidy with their clothes as well. Reds are the people. Reds, it's all about caring, sharing, harmony, all of that sort of stuff. Okay? Do you remember Star Trek? Or you remember the characters in Star Trek? Captain Kirk was yellow. Remember he used to say to go where no man has gone before? Very strategic, very much the leader. Okay? The blue was Spock. Spock wasn't interested in people, just the job. Green was Scotty. Scotty was the engineer. He was the one that was always anxious. Beam me up, Scotty. And Reds was the Bones, the doctor. He was always very caring towards the rest of the team. Now, in terms of socially, yellows love surprises. So if you're a person that likes surprises, you're definitely yellow. You're quite open-minded and you're quite flexible. Okay? If you're a blue, you just want the information. Give me the facts, give me the figures, give me the information. Tell me what it's going to cost. If you're a green, what time's it starting at? You'll be punctual, you'll be very organised. And if you are a red, it'll be all about the people. In an organisation, by the way, yellows ask the question why, blues ask the question what, Green's asked how and red's asked who. Remember, every single person, 75% of the world population can only think in 2 colours. Now here's what I mean about connecting and influencing. When a yellow meets a red, they click because they're both right-brainers. So there's no problem. When a blue meets a green, they click because they're both left-brainers. There's no problem. When a blue meets a yellow, they're okay because they both speak from the head. When a green meets a red, they're okay because they both speak from the heart. Here's where the problem happens. When you have a yellow meeting a green, they're not on the same page. Yellows love change, greens hate change. They won't give you much information, they want to give you the full book. Completely different communication styles. Reds are lovely, soft people. Blues don't know why you have emotions. Complete opposites. Now let's do a little experiment here. Who's very strongly, or they feel they're very strongly blue? Who's a very strong blue? Who picked the blue card? Okay, you're very strong blue. Alright, I'm going to ask the question, so you better... are you blue as well? I'm going to go for a gentleman here, because just for specific reasons. Blue, you're more blue. Okay, who's a very strong red? It'll be one of these nurses. Come on, one of you nurses is red. I'm not going to pick a gentleman for red. Right, there's a lady there back for red. The lady with you, the one behind. All right. Okay. Right, you're going to be my blue, and you're going to be my red. Watch what happens here. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to give me the first thing that comes into your head. I don't even want you to really stop and think about your answer. I just want you to tell me immediately what you're thinking. Okay? Now, so one of you is going to get a minute or 2 to think about this because I'm asking the other person first, but I want the same answer that's gone through your head instantly. Okay? So, sir, I'm going to start with you first. You have 2 people to sack tomorrow morning. You are going to sack 2 members of staff. What's your first thought? Come on, don't think. Tell me what you're thinking. What are you thinking?
2 आदमियों को कल निकालना है आपने तो आपके दिमाग में क्या आ रहा है?
You need to tell me immediately what you're thinking.
It is very difficult.
Okay, that is not a blue answer. That's not a blue answer. Can I ask you, sir? You're sacking 2 people tomorrow morning. First thought.
I am trying to judge for and against, evaluate, assess, and then decide.
Okay, that's a medium blue answer. Any other strong blues in the audience here?
Second.
Who else is a blue? Is there anyone in the audience here going, right, okay, I'm sacking them, letting them go? We don't have a whole lot of blues in the room. A blue will just immediately say, right, well, what are the reasons for sacking them? I'll just sack them. Now here's interesting. The lady that's a red, what's your thoughts? You're sacking 2 people tomorrow morning. First thought. What's your first thought?
I will.
You can't do it. You're okay. You can take a seat. The red is going to go, I don't know how I'm going to do this. What about the family? Where are they going to get another job? Right? Now, this is something you need to understand about yourself. Reds will think about the person. Blues will just do the action. They will do the task. Okay? We obviously have very little blues in this room. You are beautiful people. Yeah?
Like this question, in the situation that you have placed, mostly how, like you will be red and then one day you will come to blue. Then what happens?
No. Hang on a second now. Let me explain this in detail. You've got a preference, okay? And under pressure, you always default to your preference. I mean, it hasn't, that little exercise didn't work as well. If we had a very strong blue in the room, you would have seen very clearly that the first thought in that blue's head would have been, well, what's the reasons I'm sacking them? That's exactly what I've heard 1,000 times when I've asked a very strong blue that question. Whereas the reds will stand up and go, God, they've got a family. I'm feeling for them, I don't want to sack them. The red will always think of the person, the blue will always think, well, what's the reason? We just need to do the job. Now here's a question that you need to consider. Who's right and who's wrong? The red or the blue?
Madam, I want to ask you, this red is from your heart. When I want to select somebody, I have to think myself whether what my heart is telling.
You are definitely red, sir. You are definitely red. You are not my blue. You are red. Alright? And you know what? There is nothing wrong with that. You just need to know. But in life, you will meet blues. And you're going to, you see the red when they meet the blue, they go, whoa, don't want to know. You're not a nice person. Reds don't like blues. Blues think reds are too emotional. Do the job. This is where you get a disconnect. Okay? But here's the answer to who's right and who's wrong. Neither. When a blue is sacking a red, they need to have a heart. When a red is told to sack someone, they need to think, I gotta do the job here. Maybe the person's not doing the job and I gotta do it, even though you don't like doing it. Alright? Let's go on the other two. Remember, opposites create problems. Who thinks they're very strong yellow? You're very flexible, you love change.
I have a question.
Yes?
I've got these two parts for myself.
Okay.
How do we explain? Because they're opposite.
Yeah, I'm going to explain. I'll explain that in a second, right? Let me just do the example, and then I'll come back to what's going on in your head. And you're the same. You're confused. Okay? You're a right brainer. All right. Let me come back in that a second. Who thinks they're a very strong yellow? You're a very strong yellow. Who thinks they're a very strong green? Who thinks green is a person who's detailed, likes routine, likes everything to stay the same, very tidy, good at administration, good at filing, quite organised? Who's a very good green? Alright, the lady here is a green and a gentleman here that's a yellow. Now, what would happen between you two? Okay? Say for example I asked you, how did your holiday go? How did your last holiday go?
It went well.
Right, do you hear that? It went well. It's usually all you get from a yellow. Right? How did your last holiday go, Hannah?
I enjoyed it.
That's a yellow answer too. Go ahead.
I had a nice time with my children, with my family.
Okay, she's starting to talk a little bit of red. What happens? Right? What happens? She's talking with her family. What I've noticed in India is you're very, very red. Very red. If you come over to the West, I can assure you now, you will meet so many more blues. You will have a real difficulty with the number of blues you will meet. But what happens whenever you're yellow and green, and I'll explain this in a second, I'll come back to your question. If you asked a yellow, how did their holiday go, you will usually get short and sweet communication and just say, it's fine. That's it. You get no more information. When you asked a green, how did their holiday go, they might say, well, you're never going to believe it, but do you see the morning we were going on holiday? The alarm clock didn't go off and we actually were late getting out of the house, and by the time we got the luggage into the car, you want to see the traffic was horrendous. And when we got to the airport, they've actually changed how you can park at the airport, and it took you ages getting from the airport actually into the terminal. And when we got into the terminal, the queues to actually get checked in, and we're not at the holiday yet. Greens give you a lot of information, yellows don't give you any. So whenever a green is talking to a yellow, there's a disconnect, because we're not speaking the same way. Sometimes you will meet patients who will be green and they need to talk. And sometimes you will meet a yellow patient who you can just be very, very short with. Alright? So you need to understand that people are different. Now, if you have a preference for being yellow and green on the opposites, that means that you're mentally confused. Right? Seriously. 1 minute you're short and sweet, and the next minute you need all the detail. Okay, it just means that you flick between the two. Okay, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I'm actually red and blue. 1 minute I can be very warm, and the next minute I can say, just get the job done. Okay, so I can flick between the two. It's not a bad thing. Okay? The only thing it does mean is it takes you longer sometimes to make a decision. Because you're sort of, there's a little tug of war going on in your own head. Okay? So, I will give you a lot more information on this because I'll send out a specific handout to you, right? And you can then ask the doctor for the email on it. But you really need to know that there are 4 personality thinking preferences here, and that everybody can be slightly different.